Thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen. We are now live Facebook for our work session. This is a work session in preparation for our meeting in October, our last meeting in October, our recess meeting in October. So we have one presentation that is a very important presentation, in my opinion. It's going to be Kevin Stafford of Neil Schaefer is going to give us a look at how Starkville fared, shall we say, in the regional master transportation study that was done. We were very fortunate. MDOT funded a transportation study that included Tibahaw County, MSU, and the city of Starkville, and from that we've got a lot of good information that Kevin's going to share with us as it relates to Starkville, certainly, and then he's going to give us a little bit on the South Montgomery traffic study that we had, the board had approved. So Kevin, I'll let you go ahead now.
All right, thank you, Mayor Moore. Good morning. I'm giving y'all a pack of things to walk through. As y'all know, I've said it before y'all. Nobody wants to listen to an engineer talk for an hour and a half. So
Amen.
I'm gonna boil this down to hopefully about 15, 20 minutes and leave this behind. We need to go back and review what all I'm gonna talk through. But first, I'm gonna start at 30,000 feet. So the mayor mentioned the regional plan. This has been going on for about 2 years. MDOT came to the table, said, Tibahaw County, MSU, Starkville, please tell us what your desires are for transportation. Now that includes all modes, bike, ped, transit, and roadway. So we looked at all that and came out with a report. It's y'all should have received it this week electronically. It's 1,384 pages worth. So I didn't bring you all a copy today, to say the least. So I boiled it down first off to this first flyer. There's 3 things I'm gonna step through. It's 4 pages here, front and back. I'm gonna kind of summarize what the report said as it relates to the city. So first off, one of the things we did was there's a traffic demand model. It's been out there for years. It was created about a decade ago. I think Mr. Kemp, back when he was in his role as city engineer, went down to Jackson, got to see what that demand model was all about. This effort updated that demand model. What that does is basically take census data tracks and combines it with traffic data, synthesizes it to basically show what your demand looks like for traffic throughout the city. Now, this is mostly roadway related, but it still brought that up to speed. So just know that's been updated. And with that, one of the things we do are test projects. There were 18 test projects between all 3 entities that we tried out. And so with that, and I'm going to talk about one of them. That's kind of the South Montgomery into this when I get to the end. But kind of keep that in mind that these test projects, there was one came out, again, an east-west corridor off South Montgomery that I'm going to kind of focus down into and drill down. The next you'll see we talked about, first I'll cover bike and ped. We went through and looked at all the existing facilities, sidewalks in the city, bike lanes in the city, shared use paths for that matter in the city, and all different categories. And basically here, if y'all see this little area here, that summarizes how many lane miles you have of each. So now you kind of know or have an inventory of what you have. Not only that, though, we put it into that map section. So we have that now tied down, and then we went a step further and looked obviously where easy connection needs to be made in short-term and then long-term initiatives to do much bigger global transportation, market analysis, equity, health. Those things were taken into account, safety, sustainability, and again, looking at your network opportunities, and came out with hundreds of opportunities to connect. So with that, you'll see on the short term, there were over $17 million worth of short-term improvements you can make. That's in the first 10 years of the study we would predict. The study went 25 years, so your 10 to 25 range, your longer term connection, you had over $100 million worth of nothing but bike and ped. There's plenty of opportunities in there. It's spelled out line by line, and so what you see at the bottom here is first off the bike network map. So what it shows is it's a solid line, that's what you currently have in place. It details it by the type of facility that you have. If it's a dash line, that's an opportunity for connection. And you see a number on top of that dash line. What that number represents is one of the line items in the report. Again, I could be here 2 hours today just going through the bike opportunities that you have and the ped opportunities for that matter. So this first map will show you just an example of all the different bike opportunities. Flip over to the back of the next page, you'll see your ped opportunities. So your heavy blue areas you can see are kind of focused in the downtown core district, is where your sidewalks are. Of course, you can tell the campus as well is littered in blue. Those are existing sidewalks that you have. Same scenario here. Solid line represents something that's already in place. We mapped it for you. That map is GIS based. Y'all will have this to continue to maintain in the future if you so choose. But with that, the dash lines are the actual pedestrian connectivity options and opportunities that you have. And so again, you'll see numbers on top of those. And those numbers represent, once again, line items that you can go in the report, find that one specific connection and find out what that cost is. Now, these costs are in 2021 dollars. We all know what costs we're doing right now, but at least you get a basis to start from, right? So with that, I'll say the reason we're coming out with it now is the university did ask that we delay putting it out until they did their master plan. They happened to be in the process of doing their master plan at the same time, so we kind of held it out for almost a year. I know Mayor Edwards and I sat in this room probably about a year ago and went over a lot of the recommendations that came out of this, but they didn't want the cart before the horse because they weren't going to their master plan. So now those two are also synthesized together. Next, you'll see transit. For transit, we look at the overview, and as y'all know, this is the SMART system that we're talking about, and Jeremiah Dumas was at the table pretty heavily and looking at, one, what they have existing and where their opportunities are, but also we came back with recommendations, and so that's what you see at the bottom here is a map, both of your existing routes, again, in solid line, and black dots represent existing stops. But we had several stops that were recommended based on usership and different things that came to light, such as access and service, corridors that weren't served properly at this point in time. And so those are the white dots you see represented on there, but also you see the dash lines. Those are new routes we would recommend based on some of the growth opportunities that we're seeing in both the campus and city side. So we had a rider survey, got feedback obviously of what the riders thought of the overall system being in place. We looked at peer comparisons, looked at other communities that have the same system to make sure that it's efficient, that it's serving, as it does in other communities, and so y'all can look through those as well. And then I looked at expansion and obviously made the recommendations, and that's what this map kind of summarizes. And again, there's hundreds of pages in there that you can read based on transit as well, just like the bike and ped. And then finally, we come to what most people think about in the transportation study, which is the roadway piece, right? So the roadway piece took a series of counts, both at intersections and along roads, and we looked at capacity and level of service needs. So your level of service is kind of like grade school, goes from A through F, A being the best, F being a failing system, if you will. And so it looked at where y'all were currently and then projected out based on growth patterns in both the city and on campus through 2045. So your city growth projection based on census data was 0.8%. The campus growth projection was 1.5%. So that's how we projected that out through 2045. And then look at where your issues were. Not only did we look at it from a third-party bias standpoint, we also got feedback from citizens and city and of course y'all as leaders where you saw issues, and we looked at those specifically. So there are some very specific things we drilled down to, and the map you see here is just a combination of both the things we saw based on data, and then also the things that were brought to our attention from the city as well, and of course the county and MSU. I won't go through each of these. Again, this one drawing alone could be an hour presentation on these 12 items that are listed here, and there are some beyond this as well. But you can kind of see how it's represented throughout the city of different transportation issues that are out there. And then below that, you see the planning level that was put out for costing these improvements. And so you can see some of those costs associated with several of the recommendations that were made. And in several places, we recommended more than one way to actually solve some of the issues that are out there and let y'all decide what you'd like to do. And some things, such as I know the intersection at South Montgomery and 12, y'all done some improvements there already. That came out of the study initially, just simply dividing up that center line where you can't turn across it, and that helps some of that traffic flow or congestion we're having there. And then on the back, same difference. Even though we put cost to it, we also put from a road transportation standpoint, like we did for bike and ped. We gave you the short term and the long term. So highlighted in yellow, there are the items that are specific to the city, and we gave recommendations for that. And you'll see Old Mayview Road is highlighted on there. Now since y'all annexed that area, it even shows a concept of a roundabout at that intersection to kind of solve that skew and that issue that's at that intersection as well. So it's just some of the level of detail that it went into. And then finally, funding sources. How in the world are we going to get there? And so there are several sections that are specific to bike ped funding, roadway funding, and transit funding. So it's not all in one pot. We broke it up because obviously there's different pots for different types of infrastructure funding. So that's kind of what the regional plan in a nutshell put together for all three entities. And this is kind of a very brief highlight of what that plan brought out. And I want to pause there and see if there's any questions on that plan. And I'll be glad to come back. Y'all know what I do every day. And at the end of the day, I'm not a transportation planner. But I know enough about it to come talk to you about it today. And I can get a little bit into details, but I didn't help craft probably a single page in the report. So I need to give credit where credit's due. Our transportation department engineers did that. We'd be glad to dive deeper with y'all, specific on some of y'all's recommendations in the future if need be.
Okay, well, I don't know who's had a chance. I started wading through it, and I do mean slogging, kind of wading through it. And then I kind of skipped to the stuff that was Starkville, which is, pretty centric of me. But I do think there's a lot of good information in there, and I appreciate Neil Schaefer, but I also appreciate MDOT because they're the ones who funded this thing, and this is not an inexpensive project. So I was really excited that they were willing to do that for us. So that's a thank you, another thank you to MDOT. Anybody have any specific questions about it? I'm sure that nobody's had a chance to get all the way through it yet. So, anybody? Okay, well, we'll let you go to the next item then.
One thing I'll mention, another byproduct of this effort, we did put together a bike ped map. This has been out actually on the street for about a year now. Have y'all seen this yet? If you get on the partnership, you can pick one up, and I'll be glad to pass this around. If you want to take a look at it, not to before I do that. I'll just kind of show you what all it took. So when we were doing the inventory of all your bike ped, it was really easy to create a map. If I can get it done all the way point. There you go. And so you can see, obviously, on this side, the different types of facilities in this column, and then obviously where, so if you're a visitor here, you can stop through the partnership, pick up and see, all right, I want to walk or I want to bike, which is the best route for me to go, if you will. And again, this is giving you all in GIS format for updating. And then on the back side, it also covers Maven, Sturgis, and other communities out in the county that have opportunities, and also has some information of safety issues and ways to contact the police and other facilities that are in the area, such as the Natchez Trace and other trails that are regionally in North Mississippi to really affect the community. So this is out there as well. Can be reproduced as much as you need, and so we didn't date it on purpose, but it does obviously need to be updated on occasion. So again, that also came out of that regional plan.
Now, the partnership is kind of the repository for those, because that's obviously where the folks coming in want to know that.
So next, I want to dive a little bit deeper. So one of the things, and I want to first thank y'all. Y'all put out an RFP for South Montgomery, selected our firm to do the study for South Montgomery to see what improvements need to be made. Well, fortunately, on the heels of this regional plan, South Montgomery has already been looked at some level, right? So I started 30,000 foot view with the regional plan, and now I want to kind of drill down to what specifics came out of that. Not only that, what history y'all have with South Montgomery, or at least with our firm that we looked at. So first off, the second handout I've given you is more specific to South Montgomery only, and trying to navigate a scope that would be beneficial for y'all without breaking the bank. I wanted to first kind of tell you what you have in your hands, what recommendations are out there before I move on to where I think y'all can head next and get most bang for your buck. So first, in the 2022 plan, the biggest takeaway is between Academy Road and Poorhouse, we would recommend having a third lane, a third center turn lane. One of the things that's come out, whether it be the Adelaide traffic impact study that we did as the designer of that facility, or as part of the regional plan, is it looked at, there are several two-way stop conditions with all neighborhoods that come out on that roadway, and that delay causes a bad level of service. Not only that, but then north-south traffic is delayed trying to turn left into those neighborhoods, right, which backs up traffic. So that center turn lane, whether you do a dedicated left or a two-way center turn lane, would be beneficial to move traffic along South Montgomery better. So that's one high overarching improvement from Academy down to Poorhouse, the third lane addition that would be part of the regional plan, but also part of the impact study recommendations that came out of that. Next bullet you see down is, and it kind of hit that, the main two intersections we looked at this point in time were both more specifically on Academy and Poorhouse. And you see at today's level of service, they're actually operating at A's and B's. So right now today, they're not at a terrible level of service that causes you to want to do anything right now, to dive any deeper, to do anything different. But you look down at the very next bullet and you see what your 2045 projected growth looks like. And I think that's a combination of taking into account the growth of Adelaide. As a matter of fact, at the time this was done, it didn't take into the current subdivision that's going in between Lynn and Academy. So that's only going to hurt the conditions there right as well. But what you see, if you look at the very top, I kind of highlighted it here, the Academy Road for eastbound gets to a level of service F in the year 2045. And then your southbound is a level E. So neither one of those are desirable. Basically says that intersection with your projected growth is going to get worse and worse as time moves on. So one of the recommendations that came out of this is a roundabout. And before everybody runs out of the room or kicks me out of here, we did look at taking it from what is currently 2 3-lane section to a 5-lane section. It's going to cost you more to go that route. It's not going to move traffic as effectively as a roundabout would. So if you flip over to the back of the next page, you see what that level of service looks like with a roundabout. Now, I understand that roundabout has slip lanes that are going through people's front yards, and through the fire department yard. All that has to be coordinated as part of design. But conceptually, I want to show you the size that would be necessary there to move traffic.
Can I ask a question? The slip lane piece of that, is that typical of a roundabout? Because I'm not.
Because of the volume of right turns that intersection had, that would be beneficial.
Okay, but not necessarily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because you could do it with your layout, you could do it without taking somebody's front yard,
Correct.
which would certainly be, okay, all right.
Correct.
Thank
So
you.
It would affect that level of service, but that
I
level of service
understand.
aid with the slip.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you got heavy right turn.
Yeah, well, and B is tolerable, so,
That's right.
okay.
So, then next, I just want to kind of pull out that also level of services were looked at 2 other intersections. As part of, again, this is all part of the 2022 regional plan, both at Lynn Lane and Loxley, and you can see those operate anywhere between A, B, C's, and D's, depending on which lane you're looking at and what time of day you're looking at. And so, and then down below that, we also looked segmentally at the capacity of different segments. You know, I know it kind of gets congested at the end of the day between Poorhouse Road up to Lynn Lane, even Loxley for that matter. And so these show you what those level of services look like. And the worst one here is going to be from Lynn Lane to Academy in the morning time for northbound traffic. That's where you have that level of service F. And so again, this is out that planning area. Once again, that whole intersection, I should say, and this relation all projects that that's going to need some improvement in the coming future for y'all. Other report recommendations, I've already mentioned the 2-way stop controls south of Academy, that the 3rd lane would help. Also in the Adelaide study, in the future as it starts to build out, right slip lanes or decel lanes, I'll call them, to go into that neighborhood are also recommended. Also, Adelaide is committed to give additional right-of-way so that road can be expanded, at least in that area. That's one of the constraints y'all are going to have as you try to expand South Montgomery, is the available right-of-way to get that 3rd lane in there. Also recommended a potential side path. While it's not in the actual concept that was put out there, there is a conceptual plan of that 3rd lane from Academy down to Poorhouse already in the regional plan. It shows what that would look like. What it doesn't show is a side path. However, in the bike pit portion of the regional plan, we recommended a side path for that street. There are bikers and those that we feel would use that if it were there. But again, it goes back to right-of-way and cost. And so that cost is in there to add. But I will say the improvement from Academy down to Poorhouse projected on what I handed to you earlier is about $11 million. So it's no small feat to make that widening. So mentioned on here what the study didn't do. It didn't look at right-of-way. It didn't look at environmental issues. It didn't look at every single intersection along South Montgomery. Those are some of the things, if y'all decided to take it further, that you could look at. So next I want to kind of step over, or up to, I should say, Highway 12. And this, as I mentioned earlier, something that came out of the study, gives you recommendations of how to improve the congestion for Highway 12 in South Montgomery. So again, y'all already implemented this, but you also see the level of service there to operate in the C, B to D range, depending on which time of day and what direction you're going. Again, that's on MDOT shoulders to fix for y'all. Something goes wrong there, though. Just want to point that out. That is part of the report as well. So, and then again, transit. I mentioned earlier, South Montgomery is an area where there are several transit recommendation stops to be added. So that's reflected as well. Now I'll skip down. Again, I'm looking backwards in the history of where y'all been in the past with South Montgomery. So in 2015, we looked at several intersections kind of in that southern side of town, south of 12. You see the map here, some of the intersections we looked at, but South Montgomery is this kind of center spine here. Number 6, 7, and 8, 6 being Academy, 7 is Lynn, 8 is Loxley. We made recommendations at those intersections back then. Y'all actually upgraded all 3 of those, so that's a good thing. That's kind of point of the study back in 2015, right? And so I'm sure y'all have gone beyond that. The only thing I can say is that study was 7 years ago, and there have been advancements in signals since then. So if y'all did want to look back at it again, that's the only other thing you could probably do on South Montgomery from our standpoint, beyond what we've already discussed from Academy down to Poorhouse. And then on the back is Adelaide, and I've already kind of thrown it in, mixed in with some of the other recommendations. Nothing extremely earth-shattering that came out of it that I hadn't already told you. So this was done in 2020, along with, at the same time, the regional plan was going on, so the recommendations for Adelaide are going to be very similar to all the things I've already mentioned. So while I'm not going to read all that, these are quotes taken directly from the traffic impact study, which is that deeper dive that the regional plan didn't do. So we've already taken a little bit deeper dive, and Adelaide, if it ever builds out, is going to be a big factor for traffic generation on that road going forward. And we even spell out in the impact study that when phase 6 happens, a certain other, like the center turn lane and the right turnoffs need to happen with that expansion as well. That's when you're going to reach capacity at Academy and some of those other places. And so with that, though, it goes beyond and mentions site triangles to improve launch drive, either removing or lowering brick columns at a specific address. I won't name immediate here to help Fairway Drive, and then also it mentions having a diverter east-west road that will catch Adelaide's traffic in order to take it away from the Academy and North intersections to help that flow. And hence my reason for being here today. But I'm going to pause on kind of those 3 different studies that have all looked at South Montgomery and see if there's any questions on that.
And there may be, I want to make a comment, though. One of the things about studies, which pleases me, is when we have responded to studies and done what they've suggested and it's improved it. So I hate for us to have a study that sits on a shelf, so I never want us to spend money that ends up being just a round file and we just did it because we could do it, as opposed to actually implementing something that's recommended and it making a difference. So do want to say that because I think that's important for going forward as well as the past and how we've responded to things. Anybody have any comments, questions at this point in time? Okay.
All right, so we talked about South Montgomery. Again, I appreciate y'all planting your faith and confidence in our firm to help you get there. And you already have many recommendations. I talked about from the transportation side, 510, we talked about even transit. And so there's recommendations up and down that corridor already for improvement. But with that, the east-west corridor that would tie through the South Farm over potentially into Hell State or South Boulevard, Stone Boulevard, or the Y Center, that really has never been fleshed out. And if I remember, I started all this at the traffic demand model I mentioned and those 18 test projects. This is one of those test projects that we think y'all should dig further into. And so if y'all are going to spend your money to do a study for South Montgomery for something that would be really beneficial, we feel like that east-west corridor conversation needs to be had. The past I've heard is, you can't come through South Farm, no way, no how. The rhetoric I've heard is it's not necessarily no, but we would rather not. And so I think at the end of the day, spending your time to look at which corridor makes sense, because where there's a will, there's a potential way. And it may not be all the way to Hell State. It may be, again, to running up and down the west side of the South Farm or Y Center already has a road there. I know the private owners of the road that would come across from South Montgomery are very in favor of that east-west connection if it were to happen, but obviously they're interested to see how it would happen as well. And so you could also run around the southeast side of the Y Center and tie into Stone Boulevard and never hit Hell State. But I do know the university has, and as part of their recommendation from the regional plan, potential to expand Hardy Street south into Hell State, Bulldog Way south into Hell State. Artesia Road already has funding coming its way to expand Artesia Road into Hell State. So it's going to have eastern connections come in for westbound traffic into Hell State. This would be the only one that would be eastbound potentially. So, but to look at that east-west connection to relieve that northern traffic off of Academy and all the vehicles that are trying to get through Academy and all the other intersections on Loxley to Blackjack just to get to campus. One of the things we're going to do that the regional plan doesn't do is we're going to try to get cell phone data through big data sources that we have that will look at who's actually coming through the area, let's just say Adelaide, Country Club, Academy South areas, and actually going to the southeast or south side of campus. About 38% of traffic comes into the campus from the south side off Blackjack. And so those are the people that are going to divert off of that system and come through this new road. And so this will help look at, one, is this a worthwhile venture for y'all's money to build this east-west corridor, but then two, also generate the conversation with the university of, hey, is this something y'all can entertain? Because obviously there are federal funds, federal lands out there that they just can't turn over and allow a road to go through. There's a lot of biosensitive information out there that even I'm not familiar with right now. We would look at environmental and any other impacts, historical impacts that may have running through their campus as well. So with that, we put together a proposal, both of them, and all this was definitely pushing sleeves, so there's no pretty pictures in here to go through a chart. But at the end of the day, what you'll see is an hourly not to exceed fee, $48,500, and that will do all the big data that will look at 3 different corridors. That will look at putting renderings to those corridors to help paint vision. Discuss that the city would, and may have already started, an email address to get public feedback for this process. And then, of course, moving forward, and if it's dead on arrival, the reason we did it hourly not to exceed is we're only going to bill you for what you need. If that conversation started and dies, then we stop there, right? But if it continues out and there are multiple options, at least it will cover and take y'all through that entire process of looking at what that looks like. So again, you won't find this in the regional plan. You won't find anything y'all done in the past. This is the one thing y'all had to go deeper on that we think would be really beneficial to relieving traffic on Southwood.
Actually, it is in the regional plan. It's just
in
not.
there as a test project.
It's not called out, but there is a line, a dotted line through there as an opportunity or a possibility. And so I think that's while it's not in there and not discussed, it is understood that is a potential value. So I really think that the cell phone numbers and who's going where out of where would be a fascinating piece of that, because if you were to extend Shadowwood to be able to even to get to Wise, to that road that already runs there, and you'd have a whole lot of folks coming out of Greenbrier without ever touching South Montgomery. And I think the knowledge of who all and how many, now there are going to be a lot of folks that still need to go to Academy because of the Academy, and then up to Starkville High School, kids to school kind of thing, but it would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, and I left that out. So if y'all are curious where the east-west run right now looks, the path of least resistance, it's around the Shadow Wood intersection. And the reason I'm leaving 3 corridors on the table, it could change somewhere else once we get to talk to the university. And they may say, if you're going to do it, you're only going to do it here. And that may change where we need to go east-west across to get to South Montgomery, right? So that conversation will help. However, to the mayor's point, Brook Avenue would be one that could connect directly in. It's already set up. That would take that entire neighborhood off of South Montgomery and tie it directly into this road.
And that would be Greenbrier. And I do have some knowledge about Greenbrier because there are lots of cul-de-sacs in Greenbrier, but this one in particular was allowed to stub out. So it could conceivably go ahead and go on through to undeveloped territory and create another continuation on Brook Avenue. So there's real possibility there.
So in this study, we would take basically your aerial tax maps, LiDAR, topography, actually conceptually plan the corridor. So to make sure that not only, between all the environmental and potential university issues that you're going to have, that physically you can build it, and then put a cost estimate to it as well, so you know how much you're looking at, what's your bang for your buck, for the impact it will make on your traffic. And so all that will be put together in a final report given to y'all, and there may be that we get into this and there's only one true alternative to study, and so that's what we did, and that goes back to that hourly not to exceed cost for y'all. So.
Well, and on April the 19th, the board authorized the negotiation and execution of the contract, but I wanted to make sure that when we came back with an agreement, that it was something that y'all were knowledgeable about, even though you had authorized me to do something about it. So anyway, this gives us an opportunity to hear from Kevin as to what they're seeing based on the bigger picture, and then down to the more pointed area. So, any questions about any of that? Thoughts, comments?
Hey, Zach, if you write about this visit, would you consider including the email address for folks to comment? We have a public email address for folks to comment. Okay, can someone tell them what that is?
Yes.
It's South Montgomery.
No, it's not that long. We had to shorten it up because the city of Starkville is so long. I will get it to you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
That would
But
just
yes,
help get the conversation started.
We'll get it out there. But anyway, all right. If any other comments?
Well,
Yes, sir.
just a couple. So is that going to be your main focus, though, is on the east-west corridor?
Yes. So we'll design out all the intersections as it would relate to South Montgomery, anywhere it comes to on the east side. Look at the corridor. I'm thinking right now that obviously the 2-lane section is going to be the obvious section, and it may have a side pass that goes along with it just to connect to the university, which will make a lot of sense too. So all that will be part of what we work into the cost estimate, or breakout separately to consider. But right now, what that will also do, we are going to update some of the traffic counts at a few intersections, because when we run it through the traffic demand model, it's going to change some of the things that I just went over at Academy and all these other intersections. And we're going to show you, hey, by the way, 2045, it was an F if you did nothing. Now that you put this road in, it's actually going to be a C, whatever it may end up being. So we're going to update all that as well, to tell you or show you the impact it will have, obviously not just the east-west corridor, but along the northern piece as well, to show you that, instead of spending $2 million to do a roundabout at Academy, you can spend $3 or $4 million here and get you a new road and help this for years to come, among other intersections.
Well, the mayor mentioned she didn't want it to be something.
Please don't put those numbers back on me. I'm just throwing out numbers for an example. So we'll look at that and give you the real numbers when we get into it.
I mean, the mayor mentioned she didn't want something just to sit on the shelf. So, I know that east-west corridor, I really want to see that, because I want to see those numbers, and I think that would take a lot of pressure off South Montgomery. But there may be some other short-term things in there, such as a roundabout at Shadow Wood that we could do, and I want to make sure that if you're updating those numbers and we consider something like
And I'll
that.
tell you, we've done this before, and it's shown that nobody's going to reroute that route before, which is surprising to me. But then you get digging into the census data and some of that phone data, and you realize you don't have that much traffic. Like, okay, well, we looked at it, and it just is not the impact we want. We better put our money elsewhere. Or, like I said, it may be dead on arrival with the university as well. At least you can say we're not going to move the traffic.
Well, and for us, for the city, it would be, in my opinion, irresponsible for us not to look at options, because 25 years from now, none of us are going to be probably sitting here, and somebody is going to have that as an opportunity to still work with the university, and that things may change at the university. So it just gives us another path potentially, so.
I will say, if y'all look through the report, and the 18 test projects we have, this will be the one that's not in the report, because y'all are jointly in with 2 other entities, and one of them said they would like to not see that in the report at this point in time.
Well, and we certainly want to work with them, that's not the issue, but again, 25 years is a long time and a lot of things happen, so it's worth having some knowledge out there for us. Also I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I was not.
Okay. Also, if I'm recalling correctly, Adelaide is planning for a westerly exit to Louisville Street.
Have set aside right away to do that.
Yes, and so that too would be a potential reliever. Is that something that could be looked at as a part of this relieving South Montgomery?
Yes, and
Okay.
that is in the plan, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
all right.
That is one of the test routes we've already put.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. Anyway,
That's that changing behavior, people going south and then west
Yeah.
to get where they would prefer to go north and
no,
west, I guess.
We all know our roads that we cut through to get certain places right, and this is just learning that new cut back road that you cut through nobody knew about. So
Yeah.
once you create it, people will use it. So it's kind of crazy how census data tracks and cell phone information, you can actually track behavior, big brother, if you will, and it's pretty accurate to tell you how they're gonna behave once you do it.
well, and one of the things that the city needs to do, understand, and see differently is that cul-de-sacs and stopping traffic at places where they can go through and relieve other areas is just not the thing to do. And we've done that in a number of places, and we need not to continue that behavior. So when Brook Avenue, which is going to impact, right now it's a dead end, people got a basketball goal down there, right? But it's a street. And when it punches through, if it punches through, you're going to have about 6 or so houses that are going to be unhappy about that. But that's the way it was designed, and that's the way it is. So, and that's the way it needs to be. And people just need to understand that, they're living in a city and streets go through and some don't. You just have to know what you're buying when you buy. So, anyway, anything else? No?
Well, I have extra copies of the bike walk map, so y'all can fight over that one. I'll leave it with you.
We can get some more copies, and I will execute this here shortly.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, a lot of work. All right, and we can now move to our meeting and the agenda items associated with it. So we have, let's see, first up, our minutes, and Mr. Latimer, you have looked at those. Are those all ready to roll?
They are.
Okay, is consent for that? All right, thank you so much. Stop us if we need to. Employee introductions, we will have, I think, some police and fire to introduce maybe, and maybe some folks from utilities. I'm not positive about that. But Mr. Ashford is out today, unless he's snuck back in. Yes, he's out today. So we're going to answer that later on, but we'll be ready to introduce folks. Okay, so we're going to have public hearings. 2 of them are going to be related with variances, zoning, etc. So, Mr. Haviland, would you give us a little update and briefing on those?
Yeah, the first one is a use exception to use a house in a residential neighborhood as an office professional. That went to planning and zoning Tuesday night, and they recommended unanimously to deny the request.
Okay. And there was a quasi-full house for that one, so I expect we'll have a lot of folks there. There was a petition, I think it had 42 signatures or something on it?
Yes, correct.
Something like that, so we will probably have a lot of folks in the audience, so we will be having a public hearing, but maybe a lot of public comments, so we'll be prepared.
And then the second thing is combining a variance request with a special exception request. And this is for Jeremy Taylor's Summit development, which is going to be at the northwest corner of the intersection of Jarnigan and Russell Street. There's 3 lots there. He's wanting to make 2 lots out of it and add 2 buildings, mixed use. And the variance request is related to the dimensions of the actual new lots and the amount of frontage that the building's going to have along Jarnigan. That was a variance request. The Board of Justice Appeals recommended approval of that request. And then the special exception is for a reduction in the amount of parking. He's doing a condo style development, not apartments. So he's requesting the under parking according to the code. I think it was 39 spaces on site. It was required to have 48, but there's also 8 additional spaces being added on the street. And that went to planning and zoning for that portion of the request, and it was recommended for approval 4-2.
Okay. And this is former Representative Tyrone Ellis's property, I believe?
Yes, two of them are.
Two of them are? There's a duplex there?
There's a duplex on each of the Ellis properties. and
Okay.
there's a vacant lot on it.
Okay, all right. I just knew that that was kind of a part of that. I was trying to put that space in my head, so. Yes, sir?
One question. On the on-street parking, now, in the past, we allowed them to count that as part of their required. Did that change in the new UDC?
For this one, we're not counting that as part of the requirement, but he is planning on adding those 8 spaces.
Yeah.
And then there's also additional parking across the street that's in front of that development, and there's some other parking further down the street.
Right, yeah.
And he's constructing that parking, that.
Correct.
So that would be something he constructs, but it will be public parking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we used to let them count that, though, as part of their required. For instance, when we did gin, and we did,
Yeah, well, that was all done under that previous code.
That's
So
right.
This is the new code. It can be taken into consideration as being added, but it's not technically counted.
okay, that's what I wanted. I couldn't remember how we changed that, but I thought.
And that was part of the discussion at DNC. They were taking that into consideration when they were making the recommendation.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
And there is a lot of on-street parking that's very nearby there,
Yeah.
so, yeah. Okay, and both of those will be public hearings, so there's nothing we can do other than be educated by Ms. Travelin this afternoon, or this morning. Then we next have a public hearing. This will be two 21-1911s, and Mr. Latimer has looked at all the associated paperwork with that, and I think you're comfortable that we've documented it appropriately. Chief, you are comfortable that all of the documentation is good?
Yes, ma'am.
From a code enforcement standpoint? Okay. Well, they'll both be public hearings as well. One of them, in fact, I can't remember if it was Twitter now or Facebook or whatever, but somebody tagged me yesterday about the one on Fellowship, because it has been in a bad condition for a while. So hopefully this will allow us to take care of both of those and continue our efforts to clean up the community with dilapidated structures, et cetera. So one is 210 West Gillespie, and the other one is 112 Fellowship. So we'll get the full blow of that at the board meeting. And then we have, under Mayor's business, we've got consideration of approving a long-term ground lease with Oktibbeha County Humane Society. They have plans to expand their facility. They are in dire need of it. I think if anybody's been there knows that. And so they need to expand their facility, and they have an opportunity for increasing the parking, which also is tight. And also, potentially, they're looking for a grant from, well, I don't know if they're ready to announce that yet.
Well, no, I wanted to add one more service that they're going to
Oh,
be
I'm
doing
sorry,
as they
okay.
expand this. But in addition to expanding their humane shelter area, they're hoping to add a dedicated spay and neuter clinic.
Yes.
And triple the amount of space that they have available for doing spay and neuter programs, and hopefully work toward a point where there's not the demand for their services that there currently is.
And that's what that grant is for. I think there's a very large grant out there that they're in the finals for, and we're hopeful that they will get it. But yes, that kind of expansion. So that's what this is about, and this gives them the land. Basically, it's land like they're currently sitting on. It's got no particular value. I mean, it's FAA
Floodplain.
airport property. It's, I won't say swampland because it's not, but it's certainly
In the flood zone, though.
It's close.
is in
Yes,
the
it
flood
is in the flood zone, but it's not swampy. But anyway, that seems like a perfect use for it, and we certainly don't have a use for it.
Has
so.
the FAA signed off on this yet?
No, we're going to send it to the FAA after we agree to it. And Rodney, how long does that turnaround usually take? Won't be long. So, but anyway, that's the way it was listed, is contingent on the FAA's approval. So if we want to do a consent on that one, is that good? All right. Let's do that. Then we also have, and Alderman Sistrunk sat in on the, or is going to sit in this afternoon. Y'all got that scheduled this afternoon, right, for the financial advisor?
Lisa's gone until next week. It'll be next week.
I'm sorry, Monday, not today. I'm on the wrong day, Monday afternoon, prior to the board meeting, and hence the blank.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday.
We're
Okay.
juggling it still.
Okay, well, anyway, prior to the board meeting, we'll
I've
have a
read
name.
it.
We'll have a name to fill in, so, but that'll be the blank. That's the reason for the blank there, so. All right, under airport, we've got grant writing services. Mr. Lincoln, you want to share a little bit of that information with us?
Well, we're looking at teaming up with Mike Hainsey, which is recently retired at GTR, and done a lot of work over there. And so he's working on helping us with this.
To do grant writing so that, for the terminal building specifically.
Specifically the terminal.
The terminal building, so, Okay, all right, consent for that one, thank you. All right, next we have an appointment for George Sills for the unexpired term of Ward 4. And Mr. Havlin, we had somebody who got, I won't say gerrymandered out, but when we redistricted, he got out. He was no longer in Ward 4, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Schiff was formerly serving in that position. He got moved out of Ward 4, so.
Okay, and so Mr.
Sills was
Sills
the only applicant that we had.
was the only applicant, so consent for that one? All right, thank you. Under engineering, we have the Garver contract, and I think there may be a desire to do a not-to-exceed amount on here. So if the board is interested in doing a consent for this, we can add the language, the verbiage that says not to exceed, because what we have is it's coming out of a grant from the state, a $1.5 million grant from the state, so that is what this is intended to do. Hopefully, it will not go to $1.5 million. We're expecting that we're going to get a fine pencil on that one, as Mr. Williams says, and get that under 1.5, but at least a not to exceed something that we've got in hand as a part of this, which we do have it in hand, by the way. I think it's in the bank. So, add not to exceed language to this particular agenda item, and then put it on consent. Is that good? All right.
You know, what's interesting was that road wasn't included on this plan.
I thought that was interesting too, and I was actually rather surprised.
Yeah.
In fact, I should have mentioned that to Mr. Stafford, so well, I may have that conversation with him yet.
Why not? Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then we've got consideration of Garver for the Spring Street and Highway 12 TAP grant project. So anything about that one, Mr. Williams, you need to share with us?
So we've already got that. The one thing on it is going to be, it's pretty complicated because it's taking the intersection. So this is a portion of the larger project. And so it's a little bit more complicated than the size project
Yeah.
you expect on that one.
Well, and we got that.
The hardest part first.
Yeah, we got the 80-20 from MDOT on this, so this is one of those things that hopefully will help us move as we try to get over to Russell with Spring Street. So consent for that one? All right. Consideration of consulting services. This is Mr., I don't think this is under Parks for, oh no, it is Parks. I'm sorry, wrong deal. All right, as y'all all know, Mr. DeQuilla has been helping us from several years ago in Cornerstone, and he served as a consultant, and I believe that Mr. Williams is very comfortable that David's particular skill set with like splash pads and some of those very specific things that we don't necessarily have the expertise on would be beneficial to us in making this the best project it can be. Is that stated
Yes.
accurately?
So he'll be helping us look at it from an operations and management standpoint. So somebody that's ran parks for 30 plus years, and with Brandon having to crank up Cornerstone at the same time, he'll help us look at our long-term cost for the McKee redo and those projects right there. So he'll help us vet the vendors, vet materials, and make sure what we're building, what's going to cost us down the road as well.
Well, I think David has been a real asset to us over these last few years, so I really appreciate that he's willing to continue in service too. So consent for that one? Yes. Okay, all right, thank you. And then we have low bid for the Louisville Street. I'm really excited about this. The low bid came in, refresh my memory, please, two something?
Less than that is
Two something?
$250,000. So the low bid was $250,829.
And that was well below what we had thought?
Well below, $350 is what the engineer's cost estimate was. So I think the total project was $650 with materials, so now you're sitting at $550 out the door.
That's
as far as
great.
the project goes.
Okay, cool.
And we're able to award it quickly. We should be finishing up about mid-February is what the timeline is on it.
Awesome, that'd be great.
Now, which ones are these
I was gonna
exactly?
say,
So these are Lynn Lane, so it's the Louisville ones, of course, so Yellow Jacket, Lynn, and Academy are the three that are gonna be, getting renovated.
Mr. Brooks' favorite, Alderman Brooks' favorite projects.
Exactly.
Consent for that? All right, thank you. We have claims docket, then we have financials. Anything about those, Alderman Sistrunk, from your budgeting perspective?
last ones for the year, for
Okay.
fiscal '22.
Well, that'll be good. Consent for that. And then final budget adjustments for that. And we've got a handout I have not looked at it. I assume we've got a handout in the packet, so Consent for those?
And
Yes, ma'am?
the budget amendments, budget adjustments, just FYI, there are some little dribbles and drabbles of cleanup, but the biggest portion of them relate to the salary increases that we did in August, and so get that cleaned up.
Okay, all right. Fire department, we have requests for 10 sets of turnout gear. Chief, anything you'd like to share with us about those? It's kind of due. We replace them every, what, 5 to 7 years?
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, okay.
Much needed.
Okay. All right, consent for that. Authorization for the chief to travel. And I was gonna ask you, Chief, you're taking all the heavyweights with you. Who's left? Who am I gonna be talking
Who's in
to?
We got Jonathan, Mark, will be here as well, and Brian. will be
Okay,
training.
all right, thank you. So consent for that, for travel? Okay. And then Brian Arnett is needing to travel to the Training Chiefs Conference in November, so consent for that? Okay. All right, under HR, we've got some hiring to do and some promotion to do. So first is Brian Arnett as the Training Chief. Consent for that? Okay. Ronald Evans and Andy Moore as water techs. Mr. Kemp is excited to have his water folks coming in, so consent for that. Authorization to hire for executive administrative assistant for Starkville Utilities. Consent there. Aubrey Gain is a part-time engineering intern in Starkville Utilities. Utilities is cashing in here. You're in need, huh? Okay. Customer service representative in utilities. And then Dustin Evans is maintenance worker in sanitation and environmental services. You're ready, Mr. Smiley? All right. And then we have also maintenance workers in the street department. And then we have entry-level firefighters. So we're starting to get our ranks of firefighters filled in. How many are you out down now, Chief, with these two coming in?
These two will be 5 down.
Down 5? Okay, all right. Under parks, we've got state contract for, I think it's just a swap. So it's just sort of a paperwork swap on these 2 different gators. I think okay, consent for that. We ordered one and didn't get it and went to something else, but the one we originally wanted is now available, so. Police department, now we have SWAT gear needs. Chief, anything about those you want to share?
Just that it's 95% is funded through Homeland Security and it's bulletproof.
Okay, all right. Well, 95% is a great funding percentage. All right, consent for that?
It's airport level funding.
Airport, that's exactly right. Enter into a grant agreement with Mississippi for, is this the hotspot grant, Chief?
This is going to be part of the LPR.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
all right, so consent for that. And then extending the lease agreement, we got that worked out with Harley Davidson, Mr. Latimer? Okay, consent for that, all right. And then under utilities, we've got change orders for the T-Rex digger, consent for that. And lowest quote for fire retardant uniform pants, consent. And then lowest and best quote from Nesco for fire retardant, the other half of the uniforms. And then accepting the quote for 64 water modules, and that is just water meters.
Antennas for the,
Bless you.
sorry.
Okay, water meter antennas. All right, all right. And we have no executive session, so we are in the ends of this meeting, unless somebody has something they want to talk about. All right, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you ever so much for being here. Sir?
On the rug.